One of the fantasy football season. Tight end starts, sits every matchup. This week, first matchup, Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. Mark Andrews, he's a start this week. Mark Andrews, he was a top 3, top 4 tight end drafted in fantasy leagues going into the year. Well, last year, he was right at par with Kelce and Laporta before he went down. So this week, even in the tough matchups, he's a start. Travis Kelce, top 1 and 2 tight end taken off the board. He's matchup proof, even though I think this might be the last big season we see out of Kelce. I have him as a start, obviously, this week. Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil, neutral game site, Friday night football. So Green Bay Packers, Luke Musgrave last season, he looked decent in the early going, then he went down with injury. But Tucker Kraft filled in and played pretty well. So Luke Musgrave, he's a borderline option for me this week. He's a tight end that can work the middle of the field. Jordan Love really spreads that football out. And this week versus Philadelphia, I think he could be having under-the-radar type of game, but he's more of a back-end tight end. Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Goedert, I give him the start in this one. I think Dallas Goedert, there'll be some big games from him and some games where he doesn't do much like we saw last season. And now with the addition to Saquon Barkley in the backfield for Philadelphia, I think Dallas Goedert, his numbers might take a little bit of a hit, but he's still a top 12 tight end for most weeks, I believe, is Goedert. And he's a start here in week 1. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Atlanta Falcons. Pat Freiermuth, he's under the radar. The number 2 target in this passing game behind George Pickens. No one else has stepped up, and obviously they didn't go out there and get Brandon Ayuk. So in a ball game where I think it's going to be a tight one and a low-scoring game, I could see Pat Freiermuth go out there and have a decent ball game, I believe, for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. And he's a fringe one option as well. Kyle Pitts is a start, and now it's now or never for Kyle Pitts. The last couple seasons, he had crummy quarterbacks, obviously, Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke. They couldn't get the job done. Pitts, he's a freak athlete. He can line up on the outside, inside on the slot, wherever you want him, and now playing with a good quarterback in Kirk Cousins that could get him the ball. I think Kyle Pitts goes out there and has a good ball game. Minnesota Vikings at the New York Giants. Not much to say about this one. Johnny Munt, he's going to be filling in for TJ Hawkinson. And this offense, besides Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, and to an extent Jordan Addison with Sam Darnold at quarterback, none of these players are really options. Some months to sit. Daniel Bellinger, we saw some flashes from him a couple years ago where he was filling in at tight end. Last season, Darren Waller was with the Giants, so Bellinger didn't play. But I don't have any confidence Bellinger could do anything in this ball game, even though he could be under the radar type of tight end as the year goes on. Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills, 2 of the top 5 tight ends going at it in this one, where I think we could see a potential shootout between these two teams. So Trey McBride, he broke out last season in the second half with Kyler Murray back. He was a top 3, top 4 tight end off the board in fantasy drafts this season. And Trey McBride's a freak athlete, and there's not much going on over there. Besides him and Marvin Harrison, those two guys are going to eat up all the receptions and targets, I believe, for this Cardinal team. And Trey McBride, he's a start each and every week. Dalton Kincaid last season came on second half in his rookie year, had over 70 catches, over 650 yards, and he possibly might be the number 1 target in this offense with a lot of unknowns in Keon Coleman. Curtis Samuel's not a number 1, Khalil Shakir, and obviously Matt Collins as well on that offense. But like I said, they don't really have a number 1 wide receiver, and Kincaid could be a big-time tight end playing, obviously, one of the best quarterbacks in Josh Allen. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Miami Dolphins last season, what a year was for Evan Ingram, and he was in that tight end 8 to 10 range off the board in most fantasy drafts. So Evan Ingram, I give him a start. Over 100 catches last season. He was a top target for Trevor Lawrence. They definitely improved getting Gabe Davis in free agency, Brian Thomas Jr. in the draft, and I think Evan Ingram this week, once again, in the middle of the pack matchup in a potential high-scoring game, is a start. Now to the Dolphins, they really haven't used the tight end spot much in the last couple years in this Mike McDaniel offense. I know they got Jonnu Smith in the offseason, Durham Smythe, he's been there for a while, but both these tight ends really don't have value right now. Like I said, it's about Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mostert and Achane getting the touches for this Dolphin team. New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals, Hunter Henry, he had some fantasy value last season, and with the veteran quarterback Jacoby Brissett, I think Hunter Henry will be decent this year, even with the rookie Drake May, where we know a rookie's security blanket of best friend is the tight end position, but Brissett gets the call heading into the season. But this week, it's tough to trust many New England Patriot players besides Ramondre Stevenson entering the season. So Henry's a sit, Mike Gesicki, Tanner Hudson. Maybe they'll see an uptick in targets at time of recording this if Jamar Chase does play or not in this ball game. And right now it's a day-to-day thing. Practice this week with Jamar Chase playing here in week 1, and even if he does play in week 1, he hasn't really participated a lot in the practice drills and catching passes as Chase. So maybe Gesicki and Hudson have a bigger part of the offense the first couple weeks of the year, but there still sits to me Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts division ball game. Dalton Schultz, he's the 5th option in this offense with Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon they acquired in the offseason. So Schultz, he's a borderline option. I know last season he had some good numbers coming over from the Dallas Cowboys, but like I said, a lot of mouths to feed over there for this Houston Texan team, and I don't see Schultz really having a big impact, even though this could be a potential shootout between division rivals. Kyle Granson, he's a sit for me. Not much going on the last few seasons at the tight end position, and pretty much this offense is going to revolve around Anthony Richardson running, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, and maybe Josh Downs and Mitchell getting involved as well, even though Josh Downs, I don't believe he's going to play in this ball game, but Granson, I don't see much out of him, and he's a sit this week. Tennessee Titans at the Chicago Bears, both tight ends I don't really see doing much. Chig Okonkwo, he had some flashes a couple seasons ago. Last season it really didn't do much. And Will Levis, I know he's a big arm quarterback and he's got a pretty good IQ when he's a gamer, no doubt about it. But Chig Okonkwo, you have to see many games in a row before he'll be a fantasy option. He's a sit. Cole Kmet, a sit for me as well. Same as Dalton Schultz, a lot of mouths to feed over there in Chicago. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze, Khalil Herbert, I believe, will still get touches. And Cole Kmet, who had a good season last year, no doubt about it. But this year, with all those players over there in Chicago, I don't really see Cole Kmet being an impact tight end with a low ceiling. A sit this week. Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. Tommy Trimble, I don't see him doing much in this game. He's been a touchdown or nothing so far throughout his career. And Javion Sanders, he's a young up-and-coming tight end, but he hasn't done much either. It's going to be a great season once again for this Carolina Panther team. Last season, Bryce Young, he didn't get anything going. His tight ends weren't involved. I know they got Deontay Johnson that can help him out a little bit this offseason, but in this game, I don't see the tight ends doing much. He's a sit. Juwan Johnson a sit. He showed some flashes a couple seasons ago for this New Orleans Saints team, but Taysom Hill, if anyone's going to have fantasy value this season at the tight end position, even though he's a hybrid and a gadget guy, is Taysom Hill. It will be him, but I don't know what type of touches he's going to get. We know he can throw the football, catch the football, run the football at the goal line, or the packages for Taysom Hill. But like I said, we got to see consistency week in and week out for him to be a viable tight end option. So he's a sit. Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. Brock Bowers, highly touted prospect out of college over the last couple seasons, a lot of hype, and he can run the route tree. He's a mismatch for safeties, linebackers, and this week I like the matchup versus a middle-of-the-pack defense in the Los Angeles Chargers. So Brock Bowers, I think he's a top 12 option this week, and I would give him the nod even with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Now to the Chargers, Hayden Hurst, Will Disley, the 2 tight ends they got in the offseason after Gerald Everett left and Donald Parham they cut at the end of training camp. I believe these guys could have value down the line where they're playing with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, who makes a lot of players good, obviously. And there's not really a number one option. They got Quentin Johnson, Joshua Palmer, and the rookie Wad McConkey. But maybe down the line, like I said, Hurst and Disley have value, but their sits this week. Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks. Greg Dulcich, he showed some flashes a couple years ago for this Bronco team. And we know a young quarterback's best friend and security blanket is the tight end. So maybe Bo Nix and Dulcich, as the weeks go on, to get a rapport going. But this week, going into week 1, I don't see this Bronco team moving the football effectively. Dolchich's a sit. Noah Fant, he's a 4th or 5th option on this offense, obviously, for the Seattle Seahawks team. Even though it's a new head coach, new coordinator, new everything over there for Seattle. Noah Fant, he's a good talent and was obviously traded from the Denver Broncos in the Russell Wilson deal to Seattle a couple years ago. But Noah Fant's a sit for me this week. Like DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet out of the backfield. Just a lot of mouths to feed over there as well. He's a sit. Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Zach Ertz is a sit. Ben Sinnett is sit. I think down the line, Sinnett could have value when Zach Ertz goes down, or if this Commander team's out of it and they just let Ertz go to a contender. But right now, going into week 1 versus a pretty decent Tampa Bay defense and an offense, I know Cliff Kingsbury's going to have some things cooking up with his offensive mind in his playbook, but both these tight ends are sits. Cade Otton, a sit for me as well. I know Cade Otton showed some flashes the last couple seasons. He's a big target in the red zone, no doubt about it. But he's another guy that's low in the pecking order in this offense, behind Mike Evans, behind Chris Godwin. Rachaad White catches a lot of passes out of the backfield. And Baker Mayfield, he likes driving that ball down the field, where Cade Otton's more of in the middle of the field type of player on short intermediate routes. So he's a sit. Dallas Cowboys at the Cleveland Browns. I'll give the nod to Jake Ferguson. Last season, Ferguson was the number 2 option in the receiving game for the Dallas Cowboys. And once again, the Cowboys, they didn't address wide receiver or anything. Best, they stayed the same or got worse with Michael Gallup leaving, going to Vegas, and then he retired anyway. So Ferguson, the number 2 option in the passing game. Him and Dak had a good rapport. Dak's always had good rapport with his tight ends. Going back to his rookie season with Jason Witten, so he's a start. David Njoku is start for me as well. The only thing with Njoku, it's a tough matchup. And also him and Deshaun Watson really haven't had a rapport since Watson been there over there in Cleveland. And Watson, it's been a train wreck, no doubt about it, for him as a Cleveland Brown. But this week, I think Njoku still could put up top 10 numbers, even in the tougher matchup. He's a start. Sunday Night Football, Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions. Tyler Higbee, he's out 4 weeks. So Colby Parkinson and Davis Allen are going to be filling in at tight end. And I think down the line, possibly these players could have fantasy value. But this week, going into week 1, not knowing their role in the offense, and obviously guys who've been off the radar for a couple seasons now, you can't trust them in 10, 12-team leagues. And this it. Sam Laporta, obviously first, second tight end off the board in fantasy drafts this season. He's a start each and every week. I don't know if he's going to match the numbers like he did last season when he took the league by storm and unexpectedly. But Sam Laporta, he's a stud tight end, and he's matchup-proof for start each and every week. In the final game, Monday Night Football, New York Jets at the San Francisco 49ers, Tyler Conklin a sit. But Tyler Conklin down the line this season, I believe, could have some fantasy value as long as Aaron Rodgers stays healthy this year. But I believe that's a big if, coming off an Achilles and at 40 years old. But Conklin could run the routes, he can make plays, and we saw some pop games out of him even last season with Wilson, but he's a sit. And George Kittle is a start, but I'm down on George Kittle. Unlike other people, they have high hopes for George Kittle once again, but I believe he's getting up there in age. And Brandon Ayuk holding out and now re-signing with this 49er team hurts a couple of these players' value. If Ayuk left and Kittle was the number 2 option in the passing game, with number 3, if you want to pencil in McCaffrey as that number 2 option, I think Kittle's value will be better, but I'm a little down on Kittle. And this week it's a tough matchup, no doubt about it, versus the New York Jets, but I believe he still could be a top 10 option this week in a start. So that's tight end start sits every matchup for week 1 of the fantasy football season.